Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Bone. Today we have Miranda Newell, and she is part of the BOC, specifically part of the volunteers and how they keep the BOC going at the end of the day. So I want to welcome her to the show. Today we're going to talk about what the BOC is doing for volunteer opportunities and how they are providing these opportunities to athletic trainers across the nation and how this is helping our profession grow, collaborate, do all those good things to progress the profession. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah. So before we get started, how long have you been at the BOC and what is your official title and what are you doing?
My official title is manager, board. Let's see. It's a mouthful. So board and volunteer programs manager. So, and I have been with the BOC coming up on 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, volunteerism has gone down across the country. Just a few statistics, about 28.3% of Americans is how many people are actually volunteering in the general public. Rates have dropped sharply during COVID from about 30% in 2019 to 23% in 2021, and the average volunteer hours declined significantly. So about 96 hours per year in 2017 to about 70 hours in 2023. So we're here to educate why volunteers are important, some of the things that the BOC are doing for athletic trainers. April is volunteer month, so it's the perfect time to have this podcast. So Miranda, why is the conversation especially important right now for the BOC and athletic training?
I mean, like you said, volunteerism nationally is kind of on the decline, and that makes it even more important for the BOC to have this nationally recognized opportunity to recognize our volunteers and the work that they do, which may otherwise be thought of as invisible work. It can be time consuming. It's often done after working hours, on weekends, and so much of the work that protects and advocates for the ATC credential and ultimately protects the public is done by volunteers through the BOC. And so this month, it's a way for us to further recognize that they are the important people that are driving what the BOC does. They're doing exam content, participating in practice analysis projects, and serving in professional responsibility roles that help advocate for what athletic trainers do.
Yeah. So with this national data that I presented, and volunteer rates are not recovering very quickly, I think we're back to regular life. Some people keep questioning that too. But are you seeing the same trend in athletic training or just specifically at the BOC?
I can't speak for other areas of athletic training, but I can speak for the BOC. And I think we're very fortunate that we haven't seen this decline. In recent years, we have seen an incline in certain areas of our volunteer applicants. I can speak from 2023 to 2024. In both of those years, we had done calls for 2 different board positions. And in 2023, the numbers between that and how we grew to 2024, we received almost 78% more interested applicants in those volunteer opportunities. So the interest is there. in what we are recognizing. And then just as a whole, for our organization and the percentage of volunteers that we increased by 12% just from 2024 through 2025. So we feel very fortunate that we have some passionate athletic trainers that want to work with us, and that's really great.
Yeah. Well, I think my perception before this last year, when I actually came for the practice analysis, ninth edition, the panel and everything, I think a lot of people think volunteering is manning the doors, getting people checked in, handing out the goodie bags, or like, in your community, going and cleaning up the side of the road, or putting together play things or the playground for kids and stuff. From your perspective, what does volunteerism mean to the BOC beyond just helping hands?
So much more than helping hands. And I think that's important to get out there. We do not view our volunteers simply as people filling roles or completing tasks. The volunteers at the BOC are stewards of the profession. They're giving up their time and providing their expertise to protect the integrity of your credential. And that ultimately protects the public, as mentioned before. But the commitment is something bigger. I think our volunteers are really passionate about leaving athletic training better than they found it, or stronger than they found it. And so we just really value that. That's not just checking a box or completing admin work. That's having a seat at the table that can advocate for what athletic trainers do, and protecting the public.
Yeah. Well, I think volunteerism gets mixed up with the tasks that are tedious, mind-numbing, checking paperwork, getting it scanned in, those types of things. And I mean, my experience at the panel was awesome because you guys brought in, 30 athletic trainers that were all quote unquote experts where they were practicing. And I made a lot of great connections there. A lot of smart people, I've hosted some on the show. And it was just like a very fun experience where I felt like I was actually contributing my knowledge and information, my experiences to help drive where the next few years of athletic training are going. So I think that's one thing that doesn't get brought to light, is that sometimes, not that you're making the final decision, but you are intimately correlated with the decision-making process. And so I just want to make sure people understand, like, these are pretty cool positions that BOC is putting up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us for that panel, and then also for making that statement, because it is true. So much more of the volunteer work that's being done at the BOC is strategic thinking. And you can think of the staff as those that then do that administrative work to drive that strategic planning and thinking.
Yeah. So what's one moment where you realized volunteer work truly mattered to making a difference?
Definitely coming into this role at the BOC, I can remember sitting in an in-person board meeting, and I don't remember the exact topic that was being discussed. I know that it was in relation to planning for this CPC rollout, and really, I think the tagline is making CEUs work for you, right? So being a part of those conversations and just getting to witness firsthand the passion that athletic trainers in the room had for their profession, the pieces kind of fell into place that this invisible work contributes to how the profession is viewed externally. And that's by employers, that's by other healthcare providers, athletes, patients. It just really shifted my perspective, and volunteer work in my brain became more than service. And I would say it became more of a form of advocacy for ensuring that your profession is respected, it maintains credibility, and that it continues to grow in the right direction.
So you guys have many roles of where a volunteer could plug themselves into the BOC. Can you give some examples of some of the roles that you guys have available? They may be filled right now, but they could come open at any time. And how do the people not realize that these positions are volunteer positions but do make a difference?
Yeah, so we've got our board of directors. That's kind of our biggest, the top tier of our volunteers, you might say, our board of directors. We have a specialty council, and they govern the specialty certification. So right now that's the orthopedic specialty. We have our exam development committee. We have our nominating committee. We have our access and opportunities committee, an international committee, standards committee. And then from there, based on what the profession needs, we develop these panels for practice analysis or task forces for other things that we might need to utilize volunteers for. And we have our power panel, which is kind of a form of micro volunteering, where that's truly you're getting to answer survey questions that help lead us in a direction for various different areas of our strategic plan. So those range in time commitment, and they range in what you are doing for the BOC and the profession. But yeah, they're not always all open. Right now, I think the open positions that we have that we typically are always recruiting for on that volunteer portion of our BOC website is our item writers, and that's for the exam development team. So that would be for the AT exam and also the orthopedic specialty exam. We're always recruiting for item writers. And then we're always recruiting for that power panel, because the more voices that we have that are responding to those surveys, the better. There's strength in numbers for understanding what ATs are going through and how we can make everything better.
Mm-hmm.
And then anytime we have those special projects, we do those one-off call for volunteers. So we let people know what's available and really try and get people involved if they're interested.
Yeah. Well, so from what I've been saying is these are great opportunities to create change. And some people get it confused with maybe free labor. Not that it's that at all. But if we didn't have volunteers highly integrated into the BOC, what would the BOC kind of look like today or tomorrow? And what kind of things wouldn't be happening?
Well, without volunteers, we don't have the professional perspectives of people working in the field. And so for the BOC, what that would lead to is a lack of educated perspective and a lack of credibility for the credential and what we advocate for. Having volunteers that have the professional experience and expertise in all areas of athletic trainers or of athletic training is paramount for the BOC, and having that credential be trusted and really protect the public.
Yeah. No, that was a great answer. I was like, well, I mean, I just don't think it would be running efficiently. There would be a lot more bureaucracy, and like you said, it wouldn't be mirroring the actual realistic conditions of what an athletic training is working through with day-to-day interactions. So no, I think
Exactly.
that
How
was a
would we
great
know? If
one.
we're not
Yeah.
working in the, how would we know? It would feel like an educated guess, and that isn't how healthcare functions or how it should function. And so it's so important to have those people at the table and in the room setting those standards that have that experience.
Yeah. This is a little bit more off the beaten path, but with the expansion of the different settings and with the volunteer base, do you feel that you have to get special demographics or just more positions in the volunteer realm to be able to get those different perspectives, or do you guys randomize it? How do you guys make sure everybody gets a voice in what's happening?
Well, it all depends on who is looking to volunteer and who we can grab the attention for, right? So what we try to do if we see an area of expertise that maybe is lacking a voice on our end, we can personalize or change what our call looks like so that we're really pinpointing the expert that we're looking for. And that's mainly when I'm thinking of, our board of directors, there may be a gap in representation there. So how can we market this new position to get applicants that can fill that seat that represents what may be missing? And so I guess to answer your question shortly, yes, anytime something changes in demographics, we're always trying to represent all facets of the athletic training profession and the athletic trainer experience within our roles so that we are informed of everything that's going on in the profession, and that our standards and our work reflects that.
Yeah. So you kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, but you kind of mentioned about time issues, burnout issues, value perception. You kind of talked on the time limitations. So how, if somebody really wanted to volunteer, but they're in the middle of peak season and then there's crossover, then there's another season. So that time gets condensed a lot. How do you guys take advantage of opportunities that may not be so time intensive?
The BOC prides itself on being able to meet our volunteers where they're at in terms of workload, and we try to be transparent and upfront about the time demands of each of the roles within our volunteer spaces. And so we fully recognize that athletic trainers are very busy in both professional and personal lives, and that volunteering adds another layer of commitment. So it's not uncommon that we would have a volunteer needing to take a short break or temporarily pause their service. And we encourage that open line of communication so that we can provide that support. I can think of one volunteer in particular who was on a committee and rolling off, and we truly try and keep you in the system, right? We're like, what other job can we get you so that you can stay on our team? And he was working on his doctorate. He was going to have to work on his dissertation. And we're like, let's pause and we'll just come back to you. I'll check on you in a year and I'll see where you're at. And if there's something available that you feel like your voice would fit in for, then we'll check back then. And, there's other times that we have had people say, I didn't get this task done. Life is really busy, and we're able to support them in other ways. I think of some fun kind of recognition and support that we have provided just in recent months. Someone having a baby, obviously you've got a new baby at home. Your priority is trying to sleep for more than 3 hours a night, not necessarily what your BOC task might be. And so rather than making them feel like they're not completing a task that's on their list, I'm sneakily trying to find their baby registry and send them a box of diapers and a note that says, like, congratulations, we can't wait to have you back. I think that just alleviates that stress that a person might feel in not completing something they signed up for when we don't view it that way. You're a person, and what you need to prioritize, we want to prioritize, and we want to work with you on that.
Yeah. When you're vetting volunteers, you guys obviously have a wide range, but some of the volunteer opportunities that you have brought up seem kind of prestigious in, the direction, the feedback, the knowledge, the experience. How do you guys pick volunteers? I mean, do you take everybody, or how hard is the process to be vetted as a volunteer?
It really just depends on the process. Isn't hard at all. I should start there. The process is very easy of submitting an application. When I am thinking of item writers, for example, you might apply and you may not immediately join. And that's because we don't have item writer trainings all the time, right? We have a few sessions each year. And so as we do these calls and we get more applicants for item writers, we are trying to build those rosters with a wide range of demographics, right? And so we're looking through that wait list and trying to create a diverse team when it comes to like practice settings and location, so that we're representing a wide variety of athletic trainers when we're doing those trainings. When I think of the board of directors and getting applicants for those, that might be a more rigorous process, right? You're not just applying to the BOC, you are being vetted by our nominating committee, which is comprised of athletic trainers who used to be on the board of directors, and then a few others who are experts in different areas of athletic training that maybe haven't served on our board of directors. So that's a bit more of a rigorous process that might be, quoting you, a little harder, but that's important, right? Because that's who's driving our strategic plan and vision. And so for those other positions, it just depends on how many spots we have available. If it's a task force, then the same for creating those item writing training cohorts. We are looking for a wide range of expertise and practice setting and location so that we're representing the most ATs that we can in each of those groups.
Yeah. If a young professional wanted to become part of the BOC, they may feel like they're lacking a little experience, decision making, whatever it may be. What kind of positions would best fit a young professional that wants to get involved?
It could be any. And I say that because it is really dependent on what the person is passionate about and what they have experience in. So if they want to just start small and join our power panel so that they kind of have a foot in the door, they get an idea of what we might be asking for on a couple of surveys, and then another opportunity pops up and maybe they want to join a task force because it is on a topic that they're passionate about. I wouldn't discourage a young professional from applying to any of our volunteer roles. We do have a few that you have to be credentialed for 5 years, and that's listed on the call so they would know if just for longevity reasons of holding the credential, they would not be a fit. A few times I've had item writer applications come through, and it's really easy for me to see that and then send an email back. We'd love to have your application again in a couple of years. Here are some opportunities we have for you that don't have that piece that says you have to be certified for 5 years. But I think of Kelsey Reinkowitz. She is on our board of directors right now, and she is a young professional. When we did a call for candidates for that position, we were looking for somebody with, 5 to 20 years of experience. And so, when I think of her as a young professional and not having served in a volunteer role before in the BOC and going right to a board member, I mean, that's great too, right? So you really can start anywhere as long as you meet those minimum commitments or those minimum qualifications, rather, for the call that's put out.
Yeah. And then, so obviously, this is a great resume builder. Does this become a competitive advantage for career growth rather than just a nice to have?
I think when you're talking about how volunteerism in general is declining, it definitely sets an applicant apart if they are choosing to spend their time volunteering, right? So if somebody is, has this experience under their belt on their resume in comparison to somebody who doesn't, I always think that is a good helper for setting yourself apart. And that's because somebody's looking at a piece of paper, not having a conversation and understanding any reasoning or time commitments that prevented or gave capacity for that experience. I do think that when you understand that volunteering can be built around what you do have capacity for, then why not? It provides so much more than verbiage on a resume too. You're getting to work with people in different practice settings than you, different areas of the US and world. You're getting to connect with people who have been in the profession maybe several more years than you, right? They've got this different experience under their belt, and you can really form some mentorship bonds that you might not otherwise receive if you're not in those volunteer spaces.
Since you've been there only 3 years, I'm sure you have some volunteers that have been there before you, just started about the same time as you, and obviously some new volunteers. What type of leadership development happens in these positions? Have you noticed, in your short time there, have you noticed the characteristic changes or, the direction that an individual may be taking after being involved with all these people that have so much experience?
Yes. So I can't speak to what happened in the years leading up to me being involved with the BOC and the volunteer program, but I do know that when I was hired, a big goal of the organization was, how do we recognize and build growth within our volunteer pool and make it beneficial for the volunteers? They do so much for the BOC, the ATC credential. So what can we do to get them interested, keep them interested, utilize their expertise? And so we have a new volunteer management system called Lineup. Shout out to Lineup. It's been really incredible for us in keeping track of who's on what team, being able to flag a high potential volunteer, and that's somebody who maybe has expressed interest in one of the groups that they're not currently involved in. They've got that background in education or work that would help in that role. It provides us with an easy database for reporting so that we can send out little gifts and shout outs to people for completing tasks. So, and we really try to provide a structure now and a clear process and training for our volunteer roles to maximize that individual AT experience. When I'm thinking of our chairs of our committees, for example, one thing that we did last year was we invited our committee chairs to an in-person board meeting. And that kind of allowed them to get a better view of what governance looks like from the top down. So what does our board do in these in-person meetings? What kind of strategic discussions are happening? And then providing them with some extra little education of, we really value the Clifton strengths. Like here's a code in a book for you, figure out yours. And we just think it's a great way to give back by providing them little things like that.
Yeah. So I had made a post a few weeks ago about we're in a transactional society, and with the decline in other areas of athletic training for volunteers, does the BOC offer any CEUs or any other, I don't want to call them kickbacks, benefits for being a volunteer within the
Exam Development Committee are item writers for our orthopedic specialty exam and also our AT exam, and then our item writers for our My Challenge Questions group. So those are our volunteers who are writing items portion of the CPC. They do receive 5 CEUs for their work, and that's because they are participating and learning as they are creating those items that everyone is using. So we do have those 2 opportunities that do have that kickback, as you say, of a continuing education.
Yeah. No, that's where like the missing piece of the volunteer portion was like, well, we're contributing, how do we get CEUs? But that makes sense of there has to be an educational component to it. And I mean, that's kind of cool that volunteers get CEUs for those specific positions. So if somebody's looking for, biggest bang for your buck, those are the positions you want to go after.
And those, I mean, to be fair, those positions are putting in quite a bit of work, but it's such cool work when you think of, what an item writer is doing and how the item that they wrote could end up on the exam that gets a future athletic trainer certified. I think that's so cool, to think I wrote that or I played a part in writing that exam is really neat.
Yeah. And then let's see. So if somebody wanted to get involved, do they see the postings on the BOC? Do they have to reach out and say that they're interested? How do they find out about these opportunities?
Either of those works. If somebody wants to send an email, we have that nifty little guy on our website where you can chat to someone, and volunteer program is one of them that you can select. So that would kick an email over to me and I can explain what we have available. I can see what you're interested in. And so as opportunities come up, your name is in my brain and in my email, and I can go looking for when an application might be available for you to fill out. And then we always have our available opportunities listed on the volunteer portion of our webpage. If you go to the volunteer section, it's under Explore Opportunities. So that will have, our running applications that we have that I discussed earlier for our item writers and our Power Panel. I encourage everybody to join Power Panel because, like I said, it's like that micro volunteering. You get to say, I'm volunteering for the BOC, and you get to choose when you have time to respond, right? So if a survey goes out and you're in the thick of something and it's just not the right time for you, you just don't participate in it. You get the next one and you participate in that next survey. So why wouldn't you join the Power Panel is, I guess, my question. It's have your voice heard, make sure that your perspective is learned, and it's not required, right? So if you're at that point that it doesn't make sense for you, you don't have a minute to even think, don't respond, do it next time. And then we do send out an email when we have calls for special things like an athletic trainer director on our board of directors, or if we've got a task force that we're coming up with. And then sometimes it's word of mouth for our current volunteers. If we're coming up with if we're coming up on a practice analysis panel, then sometimes rather than doing a recruitment, we're asking current volunteers for letters of recommendation for people that we can reach out to and gauge their interest.
Yeah. What are some misconceptions that athletic trainers may have in volunteering at the BOC?
That they may not know enough, or they may not be experienced enough, or they may not have enough time to be involved. I think that any one of those things could be debunked by, we've got varying levels of volunteering and participation, and we need voices from all areas and experience levels to guide us in that credential. And so I think many times people are probably like, I don't have the experience. I'm not there yet. My voice isn't as important. And so we try to say, it is. We need all of you.
Yeah. And I would say, even if you're confused or not understanding what type of roles that might be available, the BOC is probably the friendliest bunch of athletic trainers I've ever worked with. Their staff, I think my relationship started about 2 years ago when, for some reason, I got Ann Milton's phone number and called her about an issue I was having about athletic training. And she patiently listened and asked questions and basically segued me into being a volunteer if I wanted to make a difference and actually talk these things out. So that's kind of amazing that she fielded. I wouldn't say I was angry, just frustrated, confused. Yes. So she, diverged me into getting involved. And, that's why To the Bone and BOC podcasts, or the podcast and the BOC are so closely connected, is that, it's me learning about the BOC and making sure other people understand how it functions and possibly learn more about it. I think we get so head in the sand when we're working as an athletic trainer, and we don't understand how you can make a difference. And I appreciate the BOC opens you with welcome arms and takes you and puts you where you want to channel your passions. So just a little side note on that. I think we're at a interesting intersection of athletic training. So we need volunteers more so that they can voice their opinions and really enact change so that we keep going in the right direction as athletic trainers. Thanks so much for being on, and happy Volunteers Month.
That's it for today's episode of To the Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daily LLC. It's hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep